What is up, residents of the Mysta-Clan? This is your boy 6 Mysta Man coming at y'all with another video. So today is going to be continuation of the last video, which was what if Kakashi had both Obito and Shishui's eyes. This is going to be a series focused a lot on pre-Naruto and Naruto Part 1, maybe ending in mid-Shippuden when Kakashi's not going to be as relevant. But for now, he's really going to be a useful character that might evolve into an S rank because of what happened in the last part. But also, I'd like to say thank you to the editors that have made my YouTube experience a lot easier, having me able to produce these videos so often and get them out to you as quickly as possible. Also, I'd like to say thanks to the Dragon Lord for creating our intro and outro. All these links will be in the description. Make sure to go check out all my socials, if it be TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, or Discord. I have them all linked in the description. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. So, right now, Kakashi is laying in his hospital bed, just having woken up after 3 days. He'd been asleep for about 3 days, which he realizes because usually there's like a rotation. Basically, there is a calendar in every room, and it would mark off what day of the week it is, just so I could make this simpler. So basically, Kakashi looking at the calendar, he'd see that it's been 3 days since he fell asleep, or passed out from chakra exhaustion for the second time, because the first time was obviously in a battle between him, Shishui, and Itachi, them just training to get his reserves up. When he woke up, he felt something weird. Both of his eyes saw differently than they usually do. He would make his way to the mirror, basically seeing that for some reason he has a Sharingan in his right eye now, and would proceed to channel chakra into it to activate its Mangekyo. Seconds after him seeing that it's Shishui's Mangekyo, he'd feel himself getting really exhausted, making himself towards the bed where he'd pass out for 3 days. Now after 3 days, him waking up, he'd look at the calendar, see that 3 days have passed, and he really needs to know what happens. He sits himself up so he could prepare to go to the council room as he looks in the mirror and once again sees both Sharingan, so he knows that it's not a dream. He'd see a note on his nightstand, basically picking it up, and it's Itachi explaining the situation. He'd basically written down that basically the Uchiha massacre was going to happen, or did happen by the time he sees this. He'd explain that Shishui is dead and it's Danzo's fault. He'd also explain that he wants Kakashi to treat Sasuke just like anyone else, because he wants Kakashi there to make sure that Sasuke doesn't die or anything, but he also wants Sasuke to become strong on his own. He gave Sasuke motivation. Now Kakashi needs to treat him like he treats everyone else. Kakashi would silently agree to this, burning by channeling fire chakra into the paper in his hand. He'd burn it up. He'd make his way over to where his clothing had been stored. Not really having enough time to take off the gown, he just puts on his cargo shorts and shinobi sandals, leaving the shirt and taking a kunai pouch. Out of the kunai pouch, he takes a weird pill, basically breaking it in his mouth, and this being a soldier pill, which kind of refills your chakra if you did not know. And he makes his way out, basically grabbing a crutch on the way because he's struggling to walk because he injured his left leg in training. I should stop saying because I've been doing that too much. And makes his way to Hokage's office. When he gets there, he basically sees 2 ambush stations outside of the council room and none out of the Hokage's office, which basically indicates Hiruzen being in there. He'd basically open both his eyes to show them that he has 2 Sharingan, and basically say, "I've got something to tell the third about the Uchiha massacre." They just let him in with no second thought because this is the dude that literally trained most of the Anbu right now. And when he bursts in with no Anbu asking the third first, people would be curious. He'd look over at Danzo, seeing the bandage he usually has on the right side of his face over on the left. The Hokage would ask him, "Kakashi, why are you here?" He'd look widely, opening his eyes, gathering a gasp from all the council, as he has 2 Sharingan, which means he's no longer 1 Sharingan Kakashi. They'd be curious, and some of them would even jump up, demanding to know what's going on. He'd look over at Danzo, and basically say, "Danzo, mind explaining why you switched your bandages?" Seeing that basically Danzo gets alert. Kakashi would smile, pouring as much chakra into the right eye as he possibly could, basically causing it to go Mangekyo and burning up Danzo's bandages. He jumps back thinking that Kakashi was going to try something and doesn't realize that the bandages started burning off. This would reveal basically Shishui's left eye instead of his right eye like it usually would, and would even more put the council on edge. A lot of Anbu would jump out, basically surrounding Kakashi, but Hiruzen would suddenly, with a body flicker, appear in front of Kakashi, saying, "Anbu, back off." They'd once again just turn their attention to the Hokage and then look towards Danzo. So now the questioning starts. Basically, a blue cover covers the room, and two other Anbu jump out, seeming to be on Danzo's side, for these are Foundation Anbu, and without hesitation, the rest of the Anbu, which would be around 6, would have already surrounded Danzo's Anbu and basically just kept them there. So even though the Foundation are a lot more progressed than the actual Anbu, I'm pretty sure the 3 Anbu on 1 Foundation person would outmatch them any day. Kakashi would start by explaining that this is Shishui's Sharingan, and so is that. Basically, Danzo's is locked in its Mangekyo state, while Kakashi can fluctuate between 3 Tomoe and Mangekyo. He'd explained that he got a note from Shishui before he died, saying that basically, or before Shishui died, instead of it being a note, Shishui would have appeared in his hospital bed, waking him up by gouging out his eye gruesomely and putting in his own. Then he'd once again flicker away, basically just telling Kakashi, "I'm sorry." Basically everyone will believe this, and it will be pointed to that Danzo is probably the reason that Shishui was missing an eye when this happened, because he did have the eye, which Kakashi described to be missing when Shishui appeared. He also suspected it be Danzo because it was Shishui's left eye missing, and Danzo suddenly switched his bandage from his right eye to his left eye, and also seemed a lot weaker for some reason. Maybe it's due to him having an implant, he'd point out. The Hokage would command the Anbu to arrest Danzo, but Danzo would not be giving up without a fight. Him currently having basically one Sharingan that does not have the either the Izanagi, or I'd say the other jutsu he had, which is he would basically have aimed for the Izanagi but would have not have gotten it, which he would have realized after starting to implant other Sharingan within his arm, and this would progress to basically show that Kakashi probably has it. Danzo would then basically nod, and his 2 Anbu would flash through some seals, which Hiruzen would recognize. This is a forbidden jutsu that basically causes the wielder to burst out into seals, absorbing any chakra on a deadly amount within a radius by giving up their own life. So both of the Foundation members would die, also hurting a lot of the Anbu around them, but importantly, the blue aura that coated the room earlier would disappear. This would have obviously been probably a chakra barrier, basically trapping anyone inside and keeping them there. Danzo would disappear in a flash, basically indicating that he used a body flicker, and Kakashi would point this out. He'd fall to his knee, being really tired after using the Amaterasu, and point out that nobody's gonna catch him. They should raid the Foundation base while they can. Basically, what would happen now is Hiruzen would basically call on another Anbu and tell him to go get the Anbu captain and get the Anbu forces to raid now. Within a moment's notice, the Anbu forces would make their way to the Foundation headquarters, greatly outnumbering the Foundation with a lot of Jonin and Anbu forces there. They would either capture or kill most of the Foundation members, with the rest being gone along with Danzo. Also, Kakashi would start saying that they need to find Danzo ASAP for what he's done, because he's also the reason that Itachi passing out. Could not even finish his sentence. The council would be more curious about this, because up until now, Itachi and Shishui only ever told Hiruzen, the 2 elders, and Danzo about them planning on killing the Uchiha. Hiruzen would have to explain this because Kakashi had pointed something obvious out. This was something that Itachi and Shishui did tell him more than once, and told him that if it's ever needed, they might need his help in getting rid of the village's ultimate threat, which might be the Uchiha themselves. Kakashi would push it off as a joke and just continue with his life until now. After Hiruzen explained that he basically rejected the idea of Itachi killing the Uchiha, and basically the two elders and Danzo arguing with him, the council would immediately turn aggressive to the elders. They'd imply that they knew nothing about Danzo doing this when something else happens. Inoichi would basically nod to Shikaku, who would trap them in a shadow binding, and he'd walk up to them, placing his hands on their heads, start breaking through countless mind seals they have in place to be able to read their minds. After about 10 minutes of silence, he'd come back and say that they were in on it, and they convinced Danzo to tell Itachi to kill the Uchiha clan. And this would also have them cut from power. Hiruzen, being the most powerful person in the village due to the elders no longer being on the council, would have solo rule over the council. He'd say that they're dismissed for now and that they discussed this another day, while all the people that are included within this circle can be discussed with. They'd be really weirded out because having 3 people discarded from the council basically meant that 3 new people needed to be recruited. Doesn't matter who they are or for what purpose, the council needed to be refilled for this purpose to be fulfilled. Also, with Hiruzen having the most authorization within the council, he'd technically be the one deciding who it would be, with no one being able to reject. So, now continuing, Kakashi would once again be in the hospital, resting up for a meeting that would happen in 2 days. He would wake up a few hours later this time, being okay with a bunch of medical shinobi pumping him full of chakra, and he'd rest up the next 2 days. 2 days would pass and Kakashi would be a lot better, and he'd start making his way to, the hall, or the council room. When he gets outside of the council room and knocks on the door, it would open to reveal a full council, and 2 people already sitting in chairs on the clan side of the council. He'd gasp, as this was some people he did not expect it to be. But this is going to be it, guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed that cliffhanger. This has been 6, and go check out all the links in the description. Now, roll that outro.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
Subscribe for more.
Yada yada does it.